Honorable Massimo Ungaro, what is the situation here right now? How Mr. Draghi, according to you, could get a majority? Because apparently this is the main issue right now.
I'm quite optimistic. I think President Draghi will find a majority. You know already that clearly Italia Viva is going to support him. Forza Italia most likely, PD as well, it's very, very likely. And then we're going to see what happens. On the right, we know very well that Brothers of Italy, the extreme right-wing faction, will not support him. But Salvini already came out keeping his options open, and he may consider an external support. We think he's going to give an external support, at least on the most critical laws. If we look at the left, I think Leu, the extreme left smaller party, will in the end agree. The big question, of course, is the five-star movement. Now, I'm in touch with a lot of MPs of the five-star movement, and honestly, I think that in the end they will support it. Maybe some of them will not. Maybe some of them will leave the party, but I don't think, frankly, I cannot see them being more than 20 or 30 at maximum. So now we see a lot of drama, a lot of cinema, which is typical in Italian politics. But if you see the declarations of today, you already see a difference between the five-star declaration of yesterday and the declarations of today. Many of them are saying we want a political government. Let's see what Draghi says. Mora, the president of the Anti-Mafia Commission, just came out saying, let's see what Draghi has to say. So honestly, I cannot see the five-star movement being so illogical in not supporting Draghi in the end, because if Draghi is not supported, the only options open are elections, which is really not the right time for the country given the crisis, the ongoing crisis. So I think that in the end, the five-star movement, at least most of it, will support Draghi.
We see many countries voting, Romania, Portugal, US, Holland is going to vote. Why we cannot vote?
Be careful. US has postal voting. In Italy, we don't have postal voting. Very important. Second, we have here the pandemic has been very, very severe. I would like to remind you that we have a country. We have been for a few weeks, not anymore, but we have been the country with the highest number of deaths of COVID per person. But most important is not only the pandemic; it's an issue that we have the recovery plan to send to Brussels. We have only until April for this to be compiled, and the President of the Republic yesterday explained for 5 long minutes why it would be bad for the country to go to elections now. It's not only the pandemic, but it's also the recovery plan, which is a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity for our country to answer to this terrible crisis and to grow again and to think about future generations. The recovery plan is the big challenge of Italian politics, and we cannot waste a single minute for this to be answered in the right way.
Is going to be a political government, a technical government, or both?
So, let's be clear.
As far as you know.
There are no technical governments. Every government has to be supported by parliament and political parties. Yeah. Now, some of these governments in Italian history, this is the third time in our history, we assign the task to assemble a government to a figure which is external to politics, okay? Which has, has in the case of Draghi, an incredible international reputation. So all governments are political by definition. It is led by people who don't come from politics, so it's a bit different. Now, I think, my opinion is that we should not have a government made only of neutral people who don't come from politics, as was the case with the Monti government in 2011. That was a different era, an era of severe financial stress. Here we don't have any immediate financial problems, and I think it would be smart and intelligent to have some political representatives in the government in order to ensure that the parties have owned the government in a way, in order to ensure that the Draghi government is connected with the political parties. Also because I don't think the experience of the Monti government had been completely positive, if you ask me. So I can see Draghi nominating 3 or 4 important ministers, but then, mediating with parties to assign other junior roles in this government.
Is, according to you, Mr. Draghi, the last option before the elections, or it would be possible to try another candidate?
I think it's the last option. We don't play with the President of the Republic credibility. I think this is the last one. This is the last attempt. I think the President of the Republic has been very clear yesterday. There are 2 alternatives. Either my government, as in the President of the Republic, which is Draghi, or elections. There is no more rounds after this.
And which was, according to you, yesterday, the biggest problem why Italia Viva was not didn't agree with the other two? Because Matteo Renzi said a lot of things, but Which was the most important one?
It was not a single one. This crisis has not been a sudden crisis. It has been a gradual build-up of a month. And yes, it was also the main messages, but we were going even to accept a Conte term, so to have Conte again, Prime Minister, even though we don't trust him anymore, but we had to show some discontinuity, a big signal that the third government would have been different. And in reality, Five-Star MPD did not want to offer this discontinuity. This was the political signal that we realized yesterday. And so we had no other option than to resort to the government of national unity of Mario Draghi.
Do you think Mr. Renzi spoke to Mr. Draghi in those days? Do you think what was the discussion between them?
I think they spoke.
As you know.
I think they spoke. I don't know the content, but I'm quite sure they spoke. I think in December.
Yeah, and previously, maybe months ago, because I spoke to other members of Italia Viva, and they were already pushing for Draghi. Many.
If the question is whether this was the outcome we wanted, no. We actually really wanted to see whether we could. Our ideal scenario would have been to continue with the same majority and have a real political government, but without Conte. Just because Conte, politics is about trust, and politics, me and you, we go to do something together. If I don't trust you and you don't trust me, it doesn't matter really the topics. The problem is that we cannot work anymore. So with Conte, over time, there was an exhaustion, a gradual deterioration of the relationship. And so our preferred option would have been to continue with the same majority, but without Conte. Then we were even ready to accept Conte for the third government, but only if we had, if some of our political points, the recovery plan, and to assistantialism in favor of investments, the management of the healthcare, the schools, how the schools have been managed during the crisis, the use of ESM. Some of our points, which are of course of a liberal progressive point of view, because we don't want this country to be founded on benefits and assistantialism, but we want a country founded on work, sweat, meritocracy, because we have a huge debt to be repaid, and we want to give a future to our future generations. Only one of these topics, or at least a recalibration of a team, so we would have been able to participate more in the decision-making process of the government, we would have accepted a Conte term. This did not happen, and so our last option, which had always been in our mind, to be honest, it has always been in our mind, but I can guarantee you it was not our favorite one. It was not our number one. But then would have been to have a government of national unity, but we really think that a Draghi government is much better than a Conte government, without saying.
Thank you so much, Honorable Ungaro, here in Rome. Thank you so much.
Thanks to you.
Grazie.